Okay, hello, Year 2 English Language. I'm recording this for you because I won't be here. I'm going on the UCAS convention trip, but I want you to prepare to do the question 3 on the 2 unseen texts that we did on Monday on the 2 political speeches. Okay, this PowerPoint you should have a copy of. It should be on Teams. It's provided by the exam board, but I'm going to go through it with you just so you're clear what you need to do for question 3. So the question is always going to ask you to compare and contrast the 2 texts and show ways in which they are similar and different in their language use. So that's just a reminder of what the question is going to be. Now, things not to do, which I don't know how helpful that is, but none of you have ever done these things, but I suppose the only one that you might try and do is write about one text first and then the second text. Okay, so don't do that. You can't write about text A and then text B. That's not comparing, obviously. But even writing a paragraph on text A and then a paragraph on text B, even if it's on the same topic, if you're not explicitly comparing them, that's no good. And that is, you're not going to get out of level 1 if that's your approach. So how are you going to go higher up the levels and produce a good question 3 answer? So the most basic points of comparison are literal factual points. So if you said one of these texts is from the Times Educational Supplement, one of them is from The Guardian. Those are different producers. Okay. One has got this audience, one has got this audience. One's got this topic, one's got this topic. Okay, those are literal points of comparison. Better would be to compare and contrast how language features are used, compare and contrast the contexts, and by this we don't mean the audience or the genre. It means to compare and contrast the purpose or the mode. And to compare and contrast the content of the 2 texts. But to do even better is to link those 2 things together, how the context and the language are connected when you're comparing and contrasting them. So you can say this text, they're both spoken texts, but there's evidence that the modern text would also have been broadcast to a wide audience, and that would explain some of these language features, whereas the 1897 speech would have been only heard and given to the audience present at the time, and that explains these language features. And most importantly is to think about the similar or the different meanings. So that's the very top level, you can see there. So there's, from the bottom to the top. The darkest green one is the best thing to do. How context and language produce similar or different meanings. So here is a paragraph template, which is really nice. Some of you will, I'm sure, like this. So this is what your paragraphs need to contain. They need features of language from both texts, quoted and labelled. Those features then need to be linked to contextual factors, including, don't forget, language change over time. Now, I did notice on some of your post-its that I asked you to write that that's one of the features that you find trickiest. So on Thursday morning, that's what I will go through with you. I'll go through with you how to talk about language change over time in question 3. You then discuss the meanings and representations produced. So that's the sort of building up of a paragraph. You start with that bottom one, then you do the next one, and then you talk about meanings and representations. In a way, that's like the conclusion to the paragraph. So you've only got 20 minutes to write this answer. The exam board suggests that's just 2 paragraphs, but it's 2 good paragraphs, or if they're shorter paragraphs, 2 points of connection. Yeah, and these are what the exam board call productive points of connection. Okay, so compare and contrast how the subject is represented. So how people are represented, how organisations are represented, how political views or ideas are represented. Compare and contrast what you can tell about the implied audience in both texts. Compare and contrast how the producer of the text presents themselves. And that might often link to the purpose of the text. Compare and contrast the genre, and compare and contrast the mode. So, key points of then to compare. So sorry, if I just go back to that one. Oh, I can't go back to that one. Brilliant. So if you're comparing and contrasting how the speakers present themselves, then when you get to differences, the reasons for the differences are the differences, for example, between the age of the texts. Or they could be due to differences in the genre, the audience, or how the audience is being positioned. Or they could be down to different attitudes in the text. So do not attempt to compare everything. And that's really the key message here, isn't it? They're just saying 2 points of comparison, or, 2 points of connection, but 2 or 3 paragraphs. Focus on representation and attitudes, covering 3 or 4 points in detail. And give evaluative responses rather than just a big list of similarities and differences. They're not expecting you to cover everything. They're expecting you to select and talk about the most interesting ones. That's the final slide. Okay, so this class I'm just asking you to prepare and plan for this comparison. And then Thursday morning's class, we will probably write it because you only have 20 minutes to write it. There's a worksheet that you'll have in class to go through, and there's a table for you to fill in. Now, I'd like you to probably write more than that table shows, so write more in your own notes is what I would suggest. Okay, and I'll see you on Thursday.